Well, guess what, Olivia? You're on camera. I am streaming and there's a kitty here. Ooh, she looks pretty now. Ooh, she looks pretty now. There is a kitty. Ooh, she looks pretty now. Ooh, she looks pretty now. Ooh, she looks pretty now. She likes it when I itch her face. I'm itching her forehead. I'm scratching the kitty. Kitty, don't look, don't make it, don't put the butthole in the camera. You're putting the butthole in the camera. You can't put the butthole in the camera. What is it? Yay! Okay. Oh, you can't get what's in the bag. It's electronics. Huzzah! Oh, walking around. Walking around at the speed of kitty. Yep. You're son of a funky music, kitty. Here we go, Olivia. You're right in the middle of the thing. Oh, Shane O'Hare. He's dead now. Oh, geez, so that guy. Look, someone did a flip. Someone did another flip. I think I have to with the US time again. Yep. There we go. Yeah, fuck.
So today, let's dig back into that treasure trove and search for our first name. But of course, if you know a wrestler who could do it,
Gee, you're in front of the camera. Everybody gonna love you.
Comment! Yeah. Okay, it's the Spider Brothers. Hopefully after this they won't be shovers. There's also an ECW wrestler.
Unsubscribed.
Introducing Premium Light. Wait, listen.
I like that ad.
Match 1.
Because
Dudley teams up with the vampire warrior Gangrel to take on the Spider. Still will have to make do with the early version of the Dudley family did. Scott Steiner starts the match. Scotty arm drags Dudley. Now it's the hip toss. This is like week 1 wrestling school here. Scott Steiner looks like he just walked out of the gym. Dudley grabs an eyelash and shakes Scotty across the room.
what case on
Scotty
it?
just suddenly smacks him and gets an 8-time driver. The crowd love that. Gangrel Rick Steiner gets tags. The crowd mark with happiness. Gangrel hits a super slam but can't follow up because he's bald and he's slow.
Yes, on.
The Hills cheat and they isolate Rick for a bit. Gangrel hits another scoop slam and makes a tag. Rick starts slamming.
Boom! Nope, it's a referee. Gentlemen. Yeah. And maybe if you look at the tiny camera, you can see something.
Big start. Ready to play. Now, out. Why not pick that? Eddie, what's the good one? What's the good one? This time, let's go to the Mark is the village of Scott. What knows what is right? What's the recipe? What's the time? The time that they got to the Eddie's not in the top. Then you can spin back. It's like
Nutsack attack!
Eddie talks to the five minutes. Scorpio sits in every day. They're from 10 pounds. Exactly. So it goes down my time too. We're the following six. I was just analyzing stuff. With an A to this. Not full time. Five minutes. Time to talk to Chris.
Nope. Nope, it was him. Nope, it was him. Is that? Oh, I'm gonna bust off. Damn it. Oh, whoop. Let's see if this will work. Boom! Yeah!
Jason, the sexiest move alive, unwisely gets tagged in. Scotty launches him with a suplex. Taz beats up Jason on the outside and sends him back to Scotty, who hits a wedgie flex. That's hilarious, I've never seen that before. It doesn't go much.
He doesn't lift the band. He's like, oh, I just said I was going to talk to him about it.
Scorpio returns, kicks Taz, and the ref wakes up to count the 3. Well, with so much of this match, I'll be off judged by now, fortunately, that game over. There isn't any match. This one is
Yes, I see Triple Gas, Temptation, almost family and wrestlers, like Johnny Family, Where's Makeup, Golden Dust, yeah, good, and someone else, John, and Max, and that's my illustrated pattern championship, and I believe it.
I can look at this outside of the turnaround for 30 points. That's quite a way to know you, especially if the time was next version of the character. Not all out. I think you end up matching up with successful. Right? Most important. Now, when it comes to the final frame, I really think you struggle a lot. But unfortunately, let's do it. I'm sure it's not right. So, it's fair to be said. It's scope to agree with that. But be honest, brother, it's time to go.
This young Ronaldo becomes a giant bee and destroys the city around where he must stop. What? Just why? I am Indian Boy 2M. Please help me. The AI channels are begging each other for views. What is that?
Nope, Weapon's dead.
Welcome to the we got to some video. People are using AI image video generation and writing, in fact, to speed up the process of something on YouTube so that we can. We've seen some hilarious Jesus wearing cargo shorts, Joe seeing the star running down their face. But even those kinds of videos feel like they have a tad more effort put in than what is technically regarded as AI slop. Like, it feels like, at the very least, the least we can say about some of the cringe AI stuff we've seen here so far is that a person went in to make a video with specific intention, whereas this AI slop is full of mass-produced garbage content, where a robot is spam making this video, just rendering out and uploading script images, whatever the prompt was. Nobody bothers to check it, nobody bothers to remake anything that doesn't work. It's tomorrow about starting article, nearly 1 in 10. The fastest growing channel globally consists of mass-produced some real AI-generated videos. And there's a beautiful picture of a still from a video from Super Cat League. So finally, thankfully, the backlash has been significant enough that YouTube had a policy up. About a month ago now, I didn't feel like it was something reaction. A lot of creators seem to read the policy update and immediately have wording before YouTube came out and such about. So I didn't think it was something dramatic that would affect me or my content personally. React a little bit, or maybe you can just see an update and think that like shopping interpretation is getting maybe like that's just all these things are really catching me. I really had no ethics. And in fact, I think this policy update would be good. So just look at that policy update and reaction and that the means and rules of this video in a little bit. First, let's just see what this AI slot actually is, so we have an idea of what we're talking about. So a huge amount of this AI slot is for children. This is a channel called Femo. Amazingly, they spell Femo's name on one of their own titles. You can see, using fresh tonight. Absolutely horrendous. I'm just so happy. The hope, I guess, is that children will just see bright colours and move it images and be like, and they'll just somehow, I don't know, go viral. I don't know what the industry is or something like this. It just looks like shit. Boxing the tunes. And yeah, just sort of stuff. Kids song, glitters, musical, colourful animated things. What's happening with grass? That's what happens in nature. You know, when you take a walk by the stream, the glowing orbs start emerging from the water and ground. Nature is beautiful. Cool, I hate it. What? Why is that happening? Well, I'm being haunted by the fucking Foxley song. I wish I had taken a photo for way of this. There is a, I'm not able to probably said this in a video, but there's like a corner shop in an area they live in where the digital sign outside instead of digital products or anything, it now just plays like a looping AI generated video of cats, like 5 people cats, like talking vegetables and stuff. So,
Couple vegetables, couple vegetables, couple vegetables.
This is introducing the VitalWare smartband, a next generation wearable gadget. Huh? So this isn't for children. This is the kind of content that isn't for children, but sneaks into your like playlists and recommendeds and from the participants like, why do I have to shoot down the evil? And then then a baby cat with horrifying teeth wearing a blue dish hair starts screaming at the camera. Just incomprehensible, awful looking. Really, why would one of the cats have a witch? Why would they shoot down the eagle?
Oh.
She wanted a necklace, I guess.
Hey, look at that! You steal your one.
Why is he? But they're white. And they wear. Why has he got a shirt and no trousers on? Horrifying. It's supposed to be the cat style. Yeah, trainers on the disappeared.
Yep.
Is that the instruction for an incantation? Is that how we get this cat out of jail? Because I think he should be in jail. It's not like evil clothes, evil witch friends to make a necklace, and then he wasn't allowed a watermelon. So you have to like the video, share it on Facebook. Okay, so what the fuck? But that's what we're dealing with here. When we talk about AI slot, now we know what most of it is aimed at children. The idea of ending at children on very
What does that mean, sir?
It's always irritated me because your children's TV is so precious and so important. And then just like soap operas featuring white other cats, in which incomprehensible, horrible stuff happens to stop and annoy you. They're probably banking on those one things. They're probably banking on people commenting saying, "This is horrible, this is insane, this is garbage, this makes sense, its cues were wrong and then it disappeared, blah blah blah." And the more people engage and say, "How crazy is this? How bad is this? How stupid is this?" People are sharing it because it's kind of hilarious how awful it is. They get paid for that either way. So, YouTube has enacted video. As you can see by the reviews for this, you may see less AI slop. Please. After YouTube enacts new videos. In one of the videos, YouTube will restrict the monetization in this part of AI generated in less than 2 years. Started at effort to promote authentic content. You may serve in generative management because challenges may answer and can enough to be good body videos, not efforts to monetize. Top documentation is still she said it is a high level of understanding of one thing
Oh no.
so that character will be a bunch of creators actually like reaction to one part will be under this policy. There's no chain here of what doing that, which is again part of why I think people who are overreacting or who are overstating this particular specific thing. It's always been YouTube's policy that you have to create original content. So whenever you are doing reaction content where you're focused, protected, here you have to be able to put a significant amount of original. You get custom post the videos. That's
Maldito Plinas.
content.
Oh, you flipped out.
Reading stuff that is to prevent people re-uploading episodes of TV shows and stuff like that. You can't just steal somebody's video and re-upload it. It has to fall under fair use. Now, we still have an ongoing problem with content with pieces, and that's been actually threatening to me. That was because it can be so easily abused and is so easily used by copyright holders, and that is because people will just fight your right to place using content that has been flagged. If you say no, this is fair use, and copyright principles, we still going to challenge it. And you have to agree to potentially lose your channel and potentially end up in court. And most people making videos on YouTube cannot afford to take, say, ITV to court and risk losing their entire livelihood. That's an actual problem, but the actual content stuff like that thing, and that's the same previously. This policy doesn't affect us now. It is designed to target this mass-produced AI. So YouTube channel who does the sound delivery to clarify the redaction content added unique value into the content. It was never about us. YouTube may, if effective, with more originality and personality, creative role, particularly improving creative role, particularly improving content. Is that like this of spans? Because I'll tell you what, almost as much as that there has been spammy mass produced as what there have been videos teaching people how to mass produce AI. So if you ever look up, which I think it came up like a video or something, if you ever look up like any of the videos I've been asked to see YouTube. The example, the main thing they'll always say is doing how to, and those channels that do how to make money on YouTube videos, it's not been about like people teaching how to make money by making how to make money videos, people to make money on YouTube. Yeah, the gentrification of content on YouTube is where it's yeah, all the people who create stuff and the people who create how to make this stuff videos and everything. So you think about the impact on stuff, it's 19%, 44% left, maybe 94% is like rather low. That's a lot. Let's have a look at some census of social media today. You can clarify students and advertising those are inauthentic content. See that information AI slip after through actual video policies. YouTube's about to make it a lot harder for you to actually mass produce AI generated videos. AI slot. Nothing with that. Reaction videos and clips plus YouTube technique will be creating a smart creation. Earlier this year, a true crime service went viral to have to be entirely AI generated. Even YouTube's own CEO, Neil Leonard, knew scammers basically used his AI generated weapons in fishing videos on the site. Some channels have published fake AI news videos on events like the Diddy trial, getting millions of views. That's it. There are also AI music channels with huge subscriber counts despite offering little original value. Social media today, YouTube clarifies changes to monetization rules around inauthentic content. In order to monetize as part of the YouTube Partner Program, YouTube has always required creators to upload original and authentic content. YouTube is updating our guidelines to better identify mass-produced and repetitious content. This update better reflects what inauthentic content looks like for them, aka AI stuff. According to Renner Ritchie, the main change is that repetitious content is being renamed inauthentic content. In order to clarify, the policy includes content that's mass-produced or repeated. YouTube welcomes creators using AI tools to enhance storytelling, and channels that use AI in their content remain eligible for monetization. YouTube provides AI tools to creators, including auto-dubbing, dream screen, and more. Channels still have to follow YouTube's monetization policies.
Okay, let's see if I'm good enough to beat Dwelly Piper.
Content is altered or synthetic. So it really is a more minor change than I think a lot of people expected. While it would be nice if there was some kind of full-on AI slot monetization ban in general, I think it would be very hard to enact that kind of policy or word that kind of policy in a way that made sense and was fair across the platform. It's a very difficult thing to do. YouTube specifically set the type of content channels that upload narrative stories to them, superficial videos to channels that upload slideshows that all have the same directions. Part of the policy is that these channels which mass produce these AI generated videos, which are almost all the same. It's just kind of very slight variations of the same video over and over again, hoping to hit the trending page by just putting SEO for I don't know, children's YouTube or something like that. Hopefully,
Oh, what?
personally, I think monetization are the most efficient way to target the reason people, the primary reason, not the only reason, the main reason that people make content, the reason people make content exclusively
Oh.
the reason that people make content
Damn it. Ouch.
it's not because it is a very easy task by monetization. Yes, you have kind of like Bible in a nutshell that can redirect to a Patreon if you're stupid enough to donate to somebody making AI inaccurate Bible content. But it's far comfortable now, it's far more work, and just mass farming out AI generated video after video, and just passively getting it out of So I think that tackling monetization, this sort of thing, is the right move. It's not going to affect as much content as we maybe think right. Like I say, I do sympathise for the possibilities at YouTube because this is a particularly difficult thing. You can't just restrict any creativity to AI because they're massive. And tools that AI uses okay. You can use these built-in AI tools and things like auto-dubbing, which is an accessibility. And you don't want to put accessibility.
Oh, this is getting itchy on my fingers.
Mass generated videos.
Shite.
If I have like things about AI generation, AI content generation, it would be a mistake, I think, to punish everyone who is just using experimenting with this thing to be half of their camera. They can't just bring it bad AI. So reinforcing the rules on requested content and better explaining what that means now because countless AI farming out there, I think is a good one. But it's really easy to get the lowdown on the story using Grail tools. I don't want to use the device for schools with the fact that ownership of the sources. As you know, it's popular, especially with AI generated news channels for the thing on the very new, isn't it? Brand new is willing to extend the subscriber platform for science and to its core by saying brand new doesn't need to do things. Algorithm skewing with the skewed factor of growth otherwise it's mixed with this like use device comparisons with
The problem is he's a striker, so he's just gonna punch you when I go here.
story. Interesting. Sort of spotlight the under the tagline of freedom, fake news. Fake news media, it's pets on their hind legs, very strange. If you sign up for brand news, you can slash and all. You can get 40% off unlimited access to the plan for 5 weeks every session for 9 years of extended to our first screen and subscription. With Geo, not only is it a great deal of use from something, and now it will also support an independent platform, a subscriber platform, for making your music more transparent. Thank you so much for listening. Do get yourself back to opposite. What's sponsoring this video. So, this is a channel called LSP Power. Description: Interview Thief Auto Simulator, Power Acid King, Rosemary Missions, and Mazadal Game Pack. Big love for all my supporters. Business and sponsor email contact. Something's a bit big for their roots. It looks like a AI.
Oh, beta bombs! Ow!
Gaming channel? How is this a thing? Franklin found secret door in police station. I go to. Also, gaming video for like 7 minutes long. Status these days?
Fuck! Oh, jeez, I went flying.
What did the voice just change? The only comments are from real AI. I am Indian Boy 2M. You take it. The AI channels are begging each other for views. You can end up with AI bots watching each other's content.
Oh, that's humiliating. First, I gotta get.
Spring chicken microblast. Yeah.
I've gotta get with this lady with the giant nose.
Are you entertained at this silent? I think of a shitty mobile game. I don't know if this is a real shitty mobile game. I might now hear 1.4 million subscribers. Oh yeah, we got past.
Yeah!
Stop fighting again. Oh, why are you so
You fell into my trap!
Oh my god, what happened to him there? Oh wow.
I love it when the medic gently places a towel over a bit of my arm and then pulls it away.
Hey, setting the ban.
AI generated street videos, street interviews, Vox Pops.
Starway 2.8.
Well, yeah, use the world champion, man.
Bittersweet growing pains and precious memories worth cherishing. Fuck you, Starway. What's this? A man accidentally saved the sacred bull and got an unbelievable reward.
I would have liked to live with a normal map.
Ah. The way the guy will swap between the two opponents. Look at all his fingers on his hands now. Guys. Look at the man. Look at the man. You fair chance. It's 2 in Roblox, 2.4 million subscribers. And look at all the thumbnails that laughs. 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 Guys, my gaming videos are real. And I think it might be better than this. Don't have no like Roblox and time. Oh, this is a setup for me. I'm gonna get her. Why do people here? How did you get here? Subscribe to you. And then sexy girl gamer. Something. Or ladies with you. Like what? Like this, I don't understand this. How are they having millions of subscribers? It must be books, right? What is this? This is another one. Introduces a piece of their smart band, next generation wearable gadget. What? It's another one with reviews and ruins the car. But tells us they've got some great progress in other time.
Yeah. Whoa. Who's winning?
He's alive!
Okay. Team Tiny Men versus
1 million
Team
subscribers.
Tajiri.
For fake Goku Dragon Ball content. You can't do that. That's copyright. That shit's copyright protected. What? I love that they've got a floating watermark, to protect their content, which is made entirely off of a copywritten character. They're using a massive IP they do not have the rights for, and they've slapped it's AI generated on top of that, and they've slapped the fucking watermark on it. 4.8 million subscribers. That channel. Hero is Insanos. Insane Spidey. What's this Cristiano Ronaldo KFC video? Cristiano Ronaldo becomes a giant bee and destroys the city. Now Messi must stop him. Alright, not gonna lie, that's a funny concept for a video.
Nope.
I like that they're just hanging out in a shitty apartment in their
No, they just let him do it.
games. I think they might have gotten bees mixed up with like termites or goats or something. Bees don't just eat through everything. That's not what a bee is.
And Sable's on board. Leader's on
Oh my god, he's the flying. That's actually horrible. There he goes. Ronaldo
Oh,
bee.
these two,
What? Just why? Why is there a bit in there where Messi rides on a pig? That one vehicle said police. The fight scenes are my favourite because they work the absolute worst. Like, the AI just can't handle that kind of quick movement. So their limbs disappear, they go all sort of like liquid and weird. But they do these fight scenes in like every video anyway. Because who the fuck cares? Who cares? Nobody's checking these. Just upload it. It probably uploads by default. They've probably got like a hotkey they press just to upload whatever the latest fucking AI generated video is. So Messi can now breathe fire. So he was able to defeat, because bees don't like fire, he was able to defeat B. Cristiano Ronaldo. That's my favourite one so far. At least the plot was interesting. Fingers crossed. We start to see
Dude,
content
don't
like
boys
that
lose the titles?
via monetization, because those are some of the top performing channels on YouTube. Fake gamer girls, AI generated gamer girls playing Roblox, cats with AKs, fake vox pops in India, fake Indian vox pops, and footballers swallowing bees and becoming Part B supervillains. At least that is an interesting. That's a creative idea, So please don't make that kind of content. If you happen to use AI, like AI generation for something, just don't.
No, D-Ron, you can't go that. Oh, wow, you went coast to coast and
actually
actually hit headbutt to a
Which is
headbutt.
fun or educational work.
Oh!
Please don't. I mean, there's problems with that, but that aside, just don't monetize it. And just maybe don't put it on YouTube, because it's just so cursed now trying to watch the. Thank God they got rid of the trending page, because it would just be this. It would just be muscular cats on their hind legs.
Oh.
Why are they so muscular? Anyway, thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts down below. I say let me know your favourite, but it's obviously going to be Cristiano Ronaldo turns into a giant bee man. I mean, there's no fucking context really, is there? Check out my real, not AI generated gaming channel for fun gaming content. Do check out Grand News using the link down below. The best way to support this channel is via my Patreon, and with that, I must give a big old shout out and a thank you to my giant chickens and colossal quackers over on Patreon, especially Connor. God damn it, Connor. most importantly, have yourselves a very lovely week, and I will see you really soon.
You've got smoke-free satisfaction. You've got the freedom to do things your way. Get $20 off 5 cans of Zyn when you take the Zyn 10 challenge. Try it for 10 days. Smoke-free. Hands-free. Find your freedom. Claim $20 off your first 5 cans of Zyn when you take the Zyn 10 challenge. Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive.
As we all know, ninjas are mammals. They enjoy gaming on their awesome guitars, and of course, when they have to, shoot the occasional blast of bio slime. But when it comes to video games, there's one particular ninja that stands above the rest, and that is Joe Musashi. In the late 80s, Ninja Mania was sweeping most of the world across Cineplexes, comic books, and video stores. And Sega was quick to capitalize on this white-hot trend with what has arguably become the grandfather of ninjutsu-based video games, Shinobi. With various sequels, spin-offs, reboots, and reimaginings, there's plenty to cover. So let's delve into all those shadowy corners, the dastardly villains, exotic locales, and various ninpo powers, and explore what makes this franchise so legendary. So, with that said, I present to you the video game history of Shinobi. Before we slice into the shadows, though, if you've been living under a rock for the last year, you might have missed the fact that Sega and Lizard Cube have just released a brand
need new champions.
At KPMG, our approach to managed services is focused on strategic outcomes and informed by broad functional, process, and sector
Mother's gonna
expertise.
take a
We work
wee.
to operationalize your growth and resilience.
Call of Duty Ghosts might be the worst game I've ever played. Now, that requires a lot of qualification and humming and hawing and generally being annoying, but such is the cost of these things. Ghosts occupies an odd place within the megalithic franchise that is Call of Duty. At this point, it sits roughly at the
I'm taking. Why are you taking all of Shono has moves?
21 full banner annual releases. It begs us to ask, what is a Call of Duty? Well, back in the late 18th century, modern nation states, as we know them, began to coalesce within a new ideology called nationalism, which will differentiate with a small n to distinguish it from the nationalist political movements that would arise in the 20th century. Within small n nationalism, people began to view themselves as part of a new national identity that encompassed or even superseded their local ethnic identities. This would lead to a bunch of stuff. As the story goes, when U.S. soldiers started killing and dying during the Great War, it became necessary to start giving medals for doing a particularly admirable job of killing or dying. Additionally, it was felt that the U.S. Medal of Honor had been handed out too frivolously during the Civil War, and the medal risked being trivialized as over 3,000 had been awarded. Okay, this is just... It turns out this was a huge boondoggle, actually a double boondoggle. Look, I had to play Call of Duty Ghosts like a dozen times to make this. Y'all are gonna sit there and listen to my goddamn research. President Woodrow Wilson ordered the War Department to do a review of the system, and the committee in turn revoked 911 Legacy Medals of Honor. Boondoggle 1 is that apparently in the Civil War, tons of Medals of Honor, being the only award the military had at the time, were handed out for some pretty suspect reasons. Many had been promised basically as a recruitment bonus.
Damn it.
For 500 were awarded to a unit that had already gone home for a mission they didn't do. And Buffalo Bill wasn't even in the military at the time he did the thing that got him the medal. Boondoggle number 2 was that Buffalo Bill, for better or worse an American icon, had his Medal of Honor stripped from him the week that he died. Battlefield Surgeon Dr. Mary Ann Brent Walker, who got her recommendation from Sherman himself and spent 4 months of the war in a Confederate POW camp, was one of 9 civilian surgeons to be awarded the medal, and the only one to have it revoked. She was also the only woman to have ever, even to this day, been awarded the Medal of Honor. Just to not leave that story hanging, she refused to return it to Congress and wore it proudly until she died in 1919 at the age of 86. Congress did eventually reinstate her award in 1977. However, amidst the bureaucracy and sexism, a phrase was born. Miller, Oscar F., Major 361st Infantry, is awarded the Medal of Honor for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity above and beyond the call of duty. And 85 years later, we've got a video game franchise. Since its inception in 2003, the Call of Duty first-person military shooter brand has produced 21 mainline titles and 22 spin-offs. Originating as a cinematic shooter in response to Electronic Arts' Medal of Honor games, which were themselves soft adaptations and expansions of the film Private Ryan under the supervision of Steven Spielberg, the games are known for their giant set-piece levels, heavily scripted sequences, extensive voice cast, cutting-edge visuals, and just all-around high production value. Quickly though, let's introduce our corporate cast of characters. The franchise as a whole is published by Activision, now Microsoft Activision Blizzard King. The original game was developed by Infinity Ward, but after the success of the first game, Activision brought in a second studio, Treyarch, to begin working on a third game, while Infinity Ward worked on the second. The idea being that the sequel would drop in 2005, and then Activision would already have a sequel to that game ready to go for 2006, which would give Infinity Ward 2 years to make the game after that, and then the game of Leapfrog would continue. Eventually, they would need to bring in 2 more studios, Sledgehammer and Raven, to wrangle the ever-ballooning scope, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. This plan for a yearly release paid off huge when the 4th game, subtitled Modern Warfare, smashed sales records and catapulted Call of Duty from being a merely successful franchise into being the video game franchise, a cultural shorthand for the idea of a video game. Indeed, Call of Duty was pushing the leading edge of production value so hard that the franchise became the definition of AAA video games. In the same way your grandmother could describe all video game consoles as a Nintendo, AAA video games could be simply a Call of Duty. Ghosts, released in 2013, is the 10th mainline title of the series, the 6th made by developers Infinity. The game follows 2 brothers, Logan and Hesh Walker, as they shoot their way through a series of nonsense levels strung together by a jingoistic plot rooted deeply in American insecurity that was bubbling up as the global war on terror solidly entered its 2nd decade. It is the near future. The, quote, great energy-producing deserts in the Middle East have been destroyed by war,
Here we are,
cutting off
Uncle
much of
Muchaka.
America's energy, leading to a collapse and decline. In the power vacuum that followed, South America has been united or conquered under the banner of the Federation of the Americas, often simply referred to as the Fed. The game opens as 2 astronauts perform maintenance on the control station for the orbital weapon Odin, a kinetic bombardment system utilizing tungsten rods dropped from space, an impractical but popular pop culture weapon, often shorthanded as rods from God. As they are performing the finishing checks on this decidedly military superweapon, the station is attacked and hijacked by Fed forces, who gain entry by posing as an American supply shuttle. The Fed successfully target and bomb a large swath of Southern California, Texas, and Florida before the temporary prologue protagonist, or prologonist, destabilizes its orbit and burns up in the atmosphere. That sounds grammatically incorrect, so just to be clear, both the prologonist and Odin burn up in the atmosphere. Parallel to this, Elias Walker tells his sons the origin story of a fabled special ops team called the Ghosts.
Oh, doing spinny dash! I call that the spinny dance.
Nothing that you would approve of. No, it's gonna. It was a different time, a different enemy. 60 men from Tier 1 teams were sent to face down a force of 500 enemy fighters. Their objective, to force the enemy back from a civilian hospital and keep its occupants alive.
In this other backstory, in another time, another war, 60 men from a joint special ops team were tasked with guarding a hospital, and they get obliterated over the course of a couple nights. 60 become 15, and eventually these remaining 15, they evacuate the hospital and send one of their own as an escort. Then the remaining 14 cover themselves in blood and sand and hide under the bodies to ambush the enemy fighters. The prose in this story is florid, reverential, bordering on spiritual ecstasy. They are baptized with blood and anointed by the sand, then massacre the opposition with hit-and-run tactics that are so sick and badass that the one remaining enemy fighter goes crazy.
He expressed warnings to others of a force so menacing and unreal, it could only be described as supernatural. He called them ghosts.
God damn it, it's even got the ellipsis right there in the subtitles. I feel like this is what folding ideas sounds like to people who don't like folding ideas. This literal campfire story is then interrupted by the rods from God falling on San Diego as the Fed uses Odin to obliterate basically everything south of Santa Monica. The body of the game takes place 10 years later, long after the war with the Fed has come to a stalemate. It's not really relevant to anything. You need to dig into the codex entries to sort it out. But basically, the US military doesn't have branches anymore. It's all just one big blob, which is really just the underlying justification for the main characters, Logan and Hash, to run around doing whatever the designers thought was going. After a tutorial mission and some walk and talk, the boys are sent out to scout some Fed salvage operation back in San Diego, their first big mission beyond the massive border wall the US has built. They are assisted on their missions by the game's spectacle feature, Riley, a trained German Shepherd, and his doggy cam sneak attack. Despite the lengthy geopolitical setup and hell-dump of backstory, the game's lore is extremely front-loaded, and the meat of the game revolves around a man named Rourke, a ghost and Dad's former commanding officer. Oh, spoiler, Dad's a ghost, like that's why he knows all of their backstory and stuff, but not like a cool ghost. He's an assassin, special ops, badass. It's treated as a twist. It's treated as a twist. They play it like it's a real twist that you didn't see coming.
But your father's not there anymore. This whole time you were one of them. You're ghost. Right, the ghost.
So Rourke, along with your dad, was one of the original 14 ghosts who were anointed with sand after defending the hospital, and his psych profile is basically that he's Rambo, but like Rambo 3 or Rambo 4 Rambo, not really First Blood Rambo. Rourke went missing in Caracas 2 years before the Odin incident and was presumed dead. When the Fed threatened all of South America and ordered all U.S. foreign residents killed or imprisoned, the U.S. preemptively invaded Venezuela and sent the Ghost to assassinate Fed leadership in a mission that culminates in Federation leader General Almagro ordering a missile strike on a massive dam overlooking the city. Now, this self-destructive action here, we're going to have to set aside the fact that America's enemies are so insane they'll nuke themselves was already a recurring plot beat in the franchise by this point, so we can instead focus on the silliness of the scenario. If Western media gets accused of playing fast and loose with its audience's lack of knowledge of the rest of the world, few other instances will really compete with this game, stashing 1 billion gallons of water a kilometer in the air above the Caribbean Sea. So the Ghosts do successfully assassinate General Almagro. You play as your dad, Elias, for this mission and shoot him yourself, but the helicopter crashes, Rourke falls into the water, and after weeks of searching for his body, the Ghosts are pulled from Caracas and Rourke is declared MIA. Since he's the antagonist, he obviously survived, and now he holds a grudge against the Ghost for a combination of not rescuing him and not having the decency to die trying to rescue him. He was instead captured by the Fed and tortured in a jungle pit where they used all the old standards: isolation, temperature extremes, sleep deprivation, stress positions, keeping him wet, presumably direct physical and verbal abuse, and they feed him psychoactive poisons, implicitly ayahuasca. This process, stylized for the cinematic, blows all of the white off of him as black alien crystals burst out of his skin. That's interesting iconography. That might come up later.
Perfect weapon to use against us.
He becomes the main villain of the entire game, and he's Bane, the Batman villain. Specifically, the Bane from The Dark Knight Rises, a 2 steps ahead criminal mastermind with seemingly limitless resources to pour into a plan that uses lofty geopolitical ambitions as a smokescreen for a personal grudge against a couple specific dudes. There's a series of Rourke-focused missions, including backstory, then an infiltration mission to find where he's hiding, an assault on the hideout, capturing Rourke, then getting hijacked by Rourke's people and dumped in the jungle, after which the game switches to hardcore filler mode. There's a winter science facility level in Chile, then an oil rig level in Antarctica, then an underwater level in the Atlantic, then a factory level in Brazil, somewhere north of Rio. After blowing up the factory, the team heads to a safe house in the remains of Las Vegas to hang out, where they get ambushed and captured by Rourke. Again,
You were right, Elias. I'm not a ghost. I'm the man that hunts them and sends them back to the other side.
there's a sinking aircraft carrier, then a tank mission, and a second space mission, and then finally you find Rourke on a train. The thing you learn in all of that faffing about, maybe a nugget per mission, is that the Fed has cloned Odin. That wreckage way back in the San Diego level where Doggy Cam was a mechanic, that was Odin, and I guess that information isn't exactly hidden, but it's really downplayed.
That's not like a place. So everything's here. But that's the film is a wreckage. We're gonna wreckage.
It's
Wonderful.
Jiminy Cricket, you don't even have a club in your hat.
It's actually kind of amazing how good a job the game does of making this theoretically important discovery feel utterly beneath notice. The crashed satellite looks unremarkable in the muddy brown gloom that pervades the game, and all leading lines direct the player away from it. You get a glimpse at the top of the hill, but the shape of the hill and the people shooting at you from down below pull your attention downwards and then to the left. When you exit the cave, the shooting is again coming from the left, pulling your view away from the crash site. Even when you exit the building and traverse a catwalk that goes right next to the satellite, the game makes sure there's people shooting at you off to the left, pulling your attention away from the wreckage. In glimpses and fragments, this crashed satellite just looks like indistinct industrial wreckage, a refinery or a silo of some kind, not a grounded weapon of mass destruction. That's the reason everyone's in this mess in the first place. The only way to really appreciate that it's the wreckage of Odin is to sit around.
Sorry, Channel, yeah,
but
gotta
this
beat
is a
you.
game that very much does not want you to explore. Cinematic shooters are 90% hide-lost hallways. That's kind of the core pitch. You trade freedom to wander for extremely intricate scripted sequences and spectacle. Wandering off is almost always tightly constrained. A door that you aren't explicitly directed to open will almost never open. A side hallway that isn't part of the shooting arena will almost always dead end quickly with nothing to see. In the case of the Odin wreckage, poking around is explicitly punished by falling into radioactive kill zones, sending you back to the previous checkpoint. Curiosity in the genre is structurally discouraged. So nominally, Logan and Pesh were sent to San Diego to figure out what the Fed is moving around looking for, but when they find it, they just go, I don't know, some busted thing. Looks expensive, and are then immediately derailed by Rourke capturing a ghost named Ajax, at which point the actual mission is discarded in lieu of meeting up with Ghost American Keegan and heading off to rescue Ajax from the ruins of Dodger Stadium. So the fact that the Federation is rooting around in the wreckage of Odin is uncovered in Chapter 3, and then being so unremarkable that aside from a stray mention in Chapter 9, it isn't really relevant again until Chapter 13, when the team stumbles into a factory loading up Federation Odin clones, a project called Loki, named after the shape-shifting infiltrator that ends the world. Now, here's the very important thing to remember about Loki. It is said out loud to call your attention to this. The important thing to note about the clone of the orbital penetrating rod weapon of mass destruction built by the South Americans is that theirs is smaller. It's less girthy, it's not quite as potent, but it is significantly more numerous. There might be some symbolism in there, I don't know. There's another space mission where Americans hijack Loki and start raining hell down on South America. You drive a tank, you fight Rourke on a train. You eventually shoot him and your brother, and all of the windows crack, like blow open, he drowns, and you and your brother sit on a beach watching the world burn as the credits start to roll before the inevitable and tragic sequel bait when an apparently immortal Rourke kidnaps Logan, that's you, and drags him off with a post-credits clip implying that Logan is being subjected to the same jungle drug torture brainwashing as Rourke was. So, Ghosts falls apart in basically every way. Like, if we're talking about a bad game, what are the ways in which a game can be bad? They can be just technically bad, unstable as software that doesn't launch right, crashes frequently, or breaks at the programming level. That's one type of bad. It can be just not particularly fun to push the buttons, like the responsiveness of it, or the feedback that you get, or the rewards that you get, the way that it respects or disrespects your time. Or it could be offensive on some narrative level. The story is full of holes, it isn't told in a way that characters are through, character motivations are vague or thin, actions and consequences don't really seem to line up, and maybe it espouses some morally reprehensible view. Ghosts is all of these. So the long story short behind all this is twofold. One is simply that games of this scope take, as a rule of thumb, about 3 years to make, and Activision had their studios cranking them out in barely 2. While Ghost was not noted for its development crunch, this is because it was still so ubiquitous and normalized across the AAA industry in the early teens that it was deemed unremarkable. A contemporary Guardian article about the development of Ghost opens by talking about crunch in an extremely matter-of-fact way, like how you would say that being a sailor involves the risk of getting wet. The second is that around the release of Modern Warfare 2, Infinity Ward went through a major upheaval. studio co-founders Vince Zampella and Jason West had wanted to sever Modern Warfare from the Call of Duty brand, getting Infinity Ward a bigger slice of the record-breaking pie. When Activision caught wind of this, all hell broke loose. The two were fired, then they sued Activision for basically manufacturing cause for their dismissal. Then Activision countersued, calling them insubordinate and self-serving schemers who attempted to hijack Activision's assets for their own personal gain. This got very messy. It came out that Activision had a thing called Project Icebreaker that West and Zampella alleged was a scheme to oust them from Infinity Ward, while Activision insisted in their defense that Icebreaker was merely a scheme to spy on emails in order to improve the relationship with the studio.
Yes, sex item.
Dozen devs departed Infinity Ward in solidarity, leaving a big old hole in Infinity Ward's dev team. While Modern Warfare 3 would ultimately come out on time, it was only because Activision brought in Raven and Sledgehammer to help finish the game. Afterwards, it was decided that the 2-year leapfrog cycle just wasn't enough time, and thus the third game out from that point would be developed by Sledgehammer, starting a 3-studio rotation. All this required was for the folks at Sledgehammer to be brought fully up to speed, not just finishing assets for a game already in progress, but working from scratch with a new engine and all the various intricacies of making a Call of Duty. This added workload on the remaining Infinity Ward staff, creating a massive technical debt that would ultimately be paid by Ghosts. None of the problems that plague Ghosts are unique to it, rather Ghosts is unique for suffering from every single problem that plagues AAA video game production. I have taken the liberty, for the sake of pacing and shaking things up a bit, of organizing all that into a numbered list. The focus in development was on getting the game ready for the launch of the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, which left the PC version in a pretty bad state, with numerous development problems leading to frequent crashes to desktop, broken script triggers, and numerous soft bugs. They fixed a lot of this over the years. It is a lot more stable these days if you play it on a modern machine, but it's still really easy to softlock various levels because Call of Duty games are extremely complicated on scripting level. If, in Chapter 2, you exit the tunnel into the LA River and immediately try and shoot down the helicopter, you can actually sort of shoot it down. But since it's supposed to come back later and you've already tripped the flag saying it's destroyed, it just never comes back for when you're actually supposed to shoot it down, and the level soft blocks.
I hear more literal birds than I hear helicopters. Alright, well, only one option.
The experience of the gameplay itself, is sluggish. Even sprinting feels more like a wobble. There's multiple vehicle segments that just do not function the way you expect them to. The helicopter fights in particular have a very bizarre control scheme that I still do not fully understand. Lateral movement works more or less like you'd expect, even if it feels terrible, but altitude control is semi-automated within a very shallow layer. It's very awkward if you expect the helicopter to control like a helicopter.
When you've got smoke-free satisfaction, you've got the freedom to do things your way. Get $20 off 5 cans of Zin when you take a Zin.
Oh, he tapped out. Awesome.
It's just kind of ugly. Even at the time, Call of Duty games were remarked on for being dominated by shades of brown, green, brown, green, gray, brown, and gray. Online comic strips like VG Cats were already mocking this trend in 2007, and yet 7 years later, Ghosts somehow takes that and makes it even worse. The brown-gray shooter has effectively become an archetype, and Call of Duty Ghosts is its avatar. The game's average color is taupe. This actually brings us to our next
Jeff
point.
Bezos is watching me stream, and he's nothing. Oh, he's gooning. He's a goon boy. He's gooning. He's gooning tonight, baby. Jeff Bezos is jizzing in your face. Jizzing in your face. Jizzing in your face.
Script. Now, Gaghan won an Oscar for Traffic, a movie with its own, let's say, interesting relationship with Latin America. Traffic can be almost single-handedly credited with convincing audiences that Mexico looks like piss, which in turn became the visual language of hot places that are also dangerous, which became the visual language of war writ large, which is in part why Call of Duty Ghosts looks the way it does. In all fairness to Gagan, I just happen to have a copy of the published shooting script, and it doesn't say anywhere, Mexico, a land the color of piss, everything is a shade of piss, even the sky. So that one's more on Soderbergh, or, well, Peter Andrews, who's just Steven Soderbergh with a Carhartt beanie and a Leica. Gagan's pedigree as a writer is honestly, like most writers, a little mixed. He wrote Traffic and Syriana, but he also wrote Abandoned and The Alamo, and not relevant to Ghosts, but still funny, he would eventually write and direct the 2020 film Doolittle starring Robert Downey Jr. Good heavens! The writing of a video game is complicated, more so for a game like Call of Duty than most, but there are elements that we can pretty safely put in Gagan's lap, like the mission briefings with their absolutely tortured stoic prose.
The sand stuck to their skin like a shroud. I'm changing them. Anointing them.
This is just kind of a whirlpool of hell. The performances aren't saving the script, but the script isn't giving the performers material worth saving.
Sometime you're one of them, you're outside ego.
The bulk of the story is very stupid and is plagued with obvious backfills that are emergent from the way that the game is made. The cinematic shooter is so reliant on massive set-piece events that they have become the cart leading the horse. This aspect is basically an open secret of how the game and an embarrassing number of modern blockbusters
Jeff
are made,
Bezos is
but it
going into my stream.
rarely
Jeff
as
Bezos
obvious
is
as
going
it
into my
is.
stream. Jeff Bezos is
Cool.
going into my stream.
First
Jeff
production
Bezos is
started
going into
when
my
a
stream.
person who
He
was
is
put
watching
to a
me.
building, a
Watching
sinking
me.
aircraft carrier. Years
Yeah.
before a writer would be sent in to figure out why an aircraft carrier is sinking. After all, enemy gunships and boats just move around on predefined paths. The exact model of helicopter, the flags being flown, or the uniforms on soldiers can all be swapped later. For a big part of the process, they're just floating cubes and other placeholders anyway. Even the dialogue and character interactions have the hallmarks of being as unintrusive and generic as possible. Characters are mostly an ephemeral presence, barking immediate orders into your ears. The why of what you're doing simply needs to be kept to a minimum presence so it can slot in easily at a later time. This is why every mission has, on average, one moment that
Hey girl, you should probably do something about
the
that.
character learns or
Probably like kick 'em.
accomplishes one thing, frequently by watching a video or reading a document, and the significance of that thing is more often than not shuffled into the interstitial monologues that serve as loading screens. You're sent to blow up an oil derrick off the coast of Antarctica and have left to literally defense Navy, but that doesn't make any sense. Not as a plan and not as the motivation driving you through the mission. It's simply the results that you're told afterwards, and then later that diverted Navy just shows up and sinks the US's last remaining aircraft carrier anyway. The crashed Odin in Chapter 2 is so conspicuously unremarked upon that it's entirely possible that it wasn't even decided what rubble the Fed soldiers would be searching through at the time the mission was started. Like, not to get repetitive here, but this is the full exchange.
That's federally late. We're kind of not
You don't interact with it, it's surrounded by killer radiation, so you can't try and do anything with it. Barrick and Keegan don't ask about it, and despite the fact that you were sent out explicitly to figure out what the Fed were doing in San Diego, this information is seemingly never relayed. The thought that the Fed is trying to salvage Odin in order to make their own isn't floated as a possibility, even as the characters are watching the Fed launch mystery ballistic missiles that NORAD loses track of after launch.
NORAD was able to say conclusively the mission launched in the Yucatan and not hit the USA.
There isn't even a beat where a character puts two and two together the moment that they walk into the room and see Loki being loaded up. Even the bit with Loki is like, okay, they walk into the room, they see something, There's a bunch of radio chatter about it, and then they move on. This level could be 95% completed without the artist even knowing what's going to go in that slot. These events, these thoughts, are all siloed from one another, interacting only through the narrow tunnels between missions.
Gentleman's
There's
game!
simply zero internal cohesion to the story. It's so obviously and shoddily a series of set pieces that were hastily strung together. It's actually difficult to keep them in order in the memory simply because there's so little logical connection between them. In the game, you infiltrate the lab to get files on the missile program, blow up the oil derrick to lure away the Navy, then sink the last destroyer guarding Brazil so you can sabotage the factory. But we could just as easily make it that during the factory sabotage mission, we uncover Loki. Then we blow up the destroyers so we can get access to the oil.
Hey, Guerrero won the title back from.
Punch will lure the Navy in the Pacific towards the Atlantic so we can infiltrate the lab and steal the access codes needed to subvert Loki. All we need to replace is a few lines of dialogue and the interstitial monologues. Other missions are less egregious, but never properly escape this artifact of their creation. Missions are in the order that makes a reasonable amount of narrative sense while breaking up the mechanics. Many of these set pieces are extremely obvious in their influences. Again, it's basically an open secret that Call of Duty level designers just look for moments from movies and go, wouldn't it be cool if you could play that? But I don't know, it just feels so hacked when the inspiration is so obvious. Rourke allows himself to be captured for no particular reason except that it allows the game to recreate the ending of The Dark Knight Rises. One level is lifted in pretty equal measure from The Dark Knight and Transformers Dark of the Moon.
Are you ready for Twisted Tea Light? With less sugar and just 110 calories, Twisted Tea Light. Keep it twisted!
The game doesn't really have mechanics, it has the simulation of mechanics. In a typical game, hell, let's get saucy and say, in a real game, the player is given a suite of interactions that they can perform, and it is then given to the player the freedom to figure out how to best string together these interactions to accomplish their goals. Ghosts instead gives you a gun and a context from things like night vision goggles, thermal optics, the dog Riley, a blinding strobe light, a motion tracker, and gas grenades aren't tools that you were given, tutorialized on, and then expected to deploy at your discretion. They are gimmicks that pop up at predetermined moments and persist in your toolkit for only as long as deemed necessary.
Okay, pick up my lightning. Here we go.
Now, there are a lot of compromises that are made in the service of the cinematic and cinematic shooter. The player is ultimately on rather tight rails with little freedom in how they approach the world. This is not inherently bad. Roller coasters are literally on rails, and roller coasters are really, really fun. And at a certain level of abstraction, this is true about basically every game with a linear story. Using Doom 2016 as an example, while the player can back
I don't like you, Sable.
Game for a substantial chunk of playtime, this is ultimately little more than freedom to hunt for collectibles, as the actual bang bang pew pew rip and tear gameplay remains constrained to a predetermined chute you must climb into if you want to rip Cacodemon eyeballs out. The argument in favor of Rails is that they are needed to provide a kind of tightly crafted experience that a freer sort of sandbox environment just can't deliver. But with that comes an unspoken contract that I, as a player, am ceding an amount of control in exchange for something impactful, and the expectation that the rails will be reasonably well disguised. I shouldn't feel the rails, because the path forward should simply be the one that I most want to go down. This way for cacodemons and their idols. Call of Duty Ghosts is littered with so many friction points, the poorly laid out levels, the obnoxious characters, the incoherent story, that the illusion, the buy-in, just falls apart. You begin to notice that you're thrust into situations where tools you were given earlier would be useful, but you don't have them, because they weren't actually tools in the first place, they were single-scene gimmicks. There is a veneer of realism here in the sense that your commandos aren't going to be showing up with the same ever-ballooning kit of toys to every single mission, but that realism shreds like tissue paper when a very useful tool like the strobe light is only functional within a single specific room. The fake commitment to realism results in frankly boring gunplay. While you will occasionally stumble across a shotgun or machine gun, by and large you will spend the campaign cycling through a series of indistinct assault rifles. Step after boring step of the game is saturated with barking orders from your commanding officers who perpetually sound pissed off that they even need to deal with you, giving the distinct impression that the game not only feels obliged to hold your hand, but resents doing it too.
You can say what that's what you want to say, and I say, understood.
Put all in a package, Ghosts is a great simulation of what an escort quest must feel like from the perspective of the NPC. Help, I'm trapped in a numbered list factory. The bosses stole my passport. If you're reading this, tell my wife I'm still alive. Please send rescue. Ghosts are cringe. The amount of worshipful religious prose that is poured out talking about the ghosts is weird and embarrassing, especially given that the source of most of that is Elias talking about himself.
And it's really happening. So the legend goes.
But it really reaches the next level after Elias is killed. In the story, the ghosts are a quasi-official interdepartmental unit consisting entirely of 14 people. There were 15 soldiers left at the hospital, one of them was sent to escort evacuees, 14 stayed behind to be anointed by Santa. That event, in and of itself, is within the lifetime of all of the game's characters. Merrick, Rourke, Elias, Ajax, and Keegan were all there. They are first-generation ghosts. Logan and Hesh are implied to be the first initiated ghosts ever. From the events of the game, the ghosts are depicted as both quite new, very exclusive, and badass to the point that prior to Rourke killing Ajax, the unit has suffered 0 confirmed casualties. So, with all of this framing, it's all just so deeply cringe when Hesh spends a loading screen detailing all the ghost funerary rites and customs like they're a deeply rooted tradition with generations of practice.
In the event a ghost is killed, his remains are placed face down, with his head pointed in the direction of his home, surrounded next to him. We do it this way, so that when our fallen are taken to the other side, they can watch over us, keep an eye on our enemy.
Let's talk about the dog. Ghosts had 2 big elements that became the backbone of the marketing campaign for the game. The lesser of these is the aforementioned hiring of Oscar-winning screenwriter Stephen Gaghan to pen the script. The big one was Riley the dog.
This is someone you care about. This is a squad member. He does everything from sniffing out explosives to protecting the team.
Riley is only mechanically available to the player in 2 chapters. He's less like a squad member and more like a specialty grenade that you have access to for 3 specific gunfights. He's barely in the game. There's a whole thing in chapter 14, that's the one where your dad dies, and Riley kind of appears out of nowhere and then gets shot, and you need to carry him through the rest of the level. After that, they show him at the start of the aircraft carrier mission, the one where the carrier sinks, but since there's a 3 days later fade in between, Riley is just sort of quietly ushered out of existence in the uncertainty of that transition.
This is you before Irving's Free Fuel for Life summer game. And this is you after you play the Free Fuel for Life summer game.
Life is better than you win.
Play the Free Fuel for Life summer game with hometown rewards and few.
The political undercurrents of the story are repulsive and reflect the madness of an America trapped in a quagmire of its own making and desperate.
None of these games have this backing.
Diegetically, America is on the back foot, is in decline following the collapse of the, quote, energy-producing deserts, and is embroiled in a defensive war against a superior foe. At least, that's what we're told. Since so much of the story is really about Rourke's personal grudge, the geopolitics sink into the distant background. America being in some nebulous decline is simply the prerequisite to justify the conflict, to make it a fair fight. America built an orbital weapon of mass destruction when they were in decline, so, take that for what it's worth. So let's actually look at how Rourke fits into all of this, thematically. We have this soup of action set pieces strung together by a plot written around them. What emerges from that soup? The theme that comes through, loud and clear, is that Rourke gives the Fed their potency. The plan to hijack Odin is cooked up by Rourke. The attack on Santa Monica is Rourke, and Loki is Rourke's doing. All the various filler tasks ultimately revolve around getting ahead of Rourke. Rourke is an attempt at deracializing an inherently racialized conflict. You simply cannot have a conflict between the United States and Venezuela without invoking the specter of U.S. interventionism in South America.
That doesn't mean anything, right? The question, is this a political game, doesn't actually mean anything, because it's what does the word political mean to you? Do we touch topics that bear a resemblance to the geopolitics
Let's
of the world
go,
we live in
poop.
today? Hell yeah, because this is that is the subject matter of modern warfare.
Despite the developers' insistence that their games are simply good, sugary fun that happens to resemble something in the shape of geopolitics, kind of like a candy cigarette, they do remain aware of the
My
implications of the
ding-a-ling.
games they make, and in the early teens were visibly sensitive to the pushback. They received criticism for how the Arab factions in Call of Duty 4 were depicted, with a nuclear suicide bombing, so Modern Warfare 2 instead revolves around the threat of a duplicitous US general. And then in Modern Warfare 3, it was revealed that the nuke had actually been the machinations not of al-Assad, but of that game's antagonist, Vladimir Makarov. Rourke is in one sense a safe antagonist. It makes the game about Americans fighting Americans, white people fighting a white person whose most vocal motivation is simple revenge. However, in the same way that the levels are generic vessels for MacGuffins to be placed into at a later date, the natural endpoint of a production pipeline that demands endless crunch, Rourke is the endpoint of corporate cowardice. There is a potentially insightful conclusion down the path of the greatest threat to America is America itself. But this is not that. The message here isn't civil. It's not suggesting that America has invested so much in outward strength that it has become internally brittle, that the contradictions of American existence threaten the concept of America itself. The vulnerability isn't American hubris. The vulnerability is American subversion. The game plays to the sensibilities of an America in tension with the war on terror, the war in Iraq, and the war in Afghanistan. As these wars were solidly entering their second decade, the narrative of a righteous war, always suspect in the first place, was decidedly faltering. America's presence was clearly not a stabilizing force, and they had become an intractable quagmire. So in Ghosts, the Middle East is simply written out of the picture in passive force, the destruction of the oil-producing deserts. No one's fault, just a thing that happened. The Fed, which is to say South America, is described as invasive, creeping, consuming, an inexorable force moving northwards to take over America for no reason but conquest. In the cutscenes, they are an organic, oily mass crawling across the map and staining it. They are a perverting force, a subverting enemy that will invade American space, take America's things, and turn them against America. The enemy is both impossibly strong and utterly
Here we
impotent.
go.
Their power is not strength in their own right, but their ability to pervert. Rourke does not become disillusioned with America. That's not why he switches sides. While he definitely harbors a grudge against specific individuals, his heel turn is fully explained as brainwashing. He is tortured and drugged and converted into their ghost. And there's that imagery. As the Federation torturers go to work on his soul, the whiteness is literally blasted off him, and black crystals rupture out of his body as he becomes their operative. In an attempt at telling an underdog story, Ghosts creates a world where American paranoia is fully justified, where American orbital weapons are good and right, but Federation orbital weapons are an abomination, and also decidedly less potent, but more numerous. It is a world where the Fed is wrong to see America as an existential threat and behave accordingly, but it is simply pragmatic for America to assassinate Federation leadership. The hordes are coming, they're sending their murderers, their drug dealers, and their rapists to corrupt America. The wall is simply a necessity. I don't think much, if any, of this is intentional. Rather, it is my belief that Call of Duty Ghosts is a thoughtless crime. These are the consequences of a bad, albeit Oscar-winning writer simply trying to paint a broad stroke scene to efficiently communicate a stupid plot to an inattentive audience after he was handed a pile of half-built set pieces and a vague corporate mandate for the overall shape and tone. But in that thoughtlessness, in the reliance on stereotype and trope, Ghost tapped into an anxiety of the moment it was created in, a desperate need for America to be righteous and justified, for its paranoia to be a foresight of something real. Given that we are now living in the consequences of that paranoia, the odious results of that anxiety, I find Call of Duty Ghosts repulsive. The worst game I have ever played.
Wow, that sure was an episode, wasn't it? And to think, he didn't even get around to mentioning the fish AI, the role of NORAD as the U.S. military's head command, seemingly implying that Canada has been annexed, the controversy of the developers reusing motion capture data from Modern Warfare 2, the reality of American energy production, or the fact that Eminem's song Survival was released as a pre-order bonus. Well, anyway, it's a long way back to Canada from here in Mexico, where I most certainly am, because I am in Mexico and most definitely not in southern Alberta, so I'm going to get right on moseying. Until next time, keep your tangos frosty and your LZ clear.
Not all ingredients are created equal, but when you choose Blue Light Protection Formula, you're getting real meat first, fruits, veggies, and whole grains. When only the best will do, beat Blue.
At least sounds actually move. Snooker hitting you in the balls. My dog can't handle the lady. Mm. So I gotta delete this dumb thing right here.